Long before time was counted, and before the first spark of life existed on earth, the heavens were a realm of perfect harmony. Infinite goodness reigned sovereign, and the angels, pure and radiant creations, devoted themselves to glorifying the Creator. At the heart of this heavenly kingdom, God decided to manifest His masterpiece, a creation that would reflect the very essence of perfection. Thus, Lucifer was born, the bearer of light, the most radiant and magnificent of all celestial beings. He was the seal of perfection, endowed with incomparable wisdom and transcendent beauty. The angels looked upon Lucifer with admiration. His presence illuminated the heavens like a beacon that guided and inspired. He was not merely an angel, he was the living symbol of divine glory, created to lead, protect, and be a direct reflection of God's power. But in a universe where freedom was part of perfection, something unexpected began to arise. Within the heart of the one considered untouchable, a spark of ambition began to burn, like a shadow growing amidst the light. The story of Lucifer is not merely the narrative of a fall, but of how the greatest celestial creation became the greatest adversary of God. It is a timeless warning. Even the highest can succumb to darkness when pride and envy find space. This is the story of Lucifer, the bearer of light, who by embracing darkness brought with him the marks of destruction and suffering. Long before any trace of discord, the heavens were a kingdom of absolute majesty and harmony. Under the rule of the Creator, a perfect celestial hierarchy was established, with each being fulfilling a unique and essential role. The angels, like armies of light, were created to reflect divine glory, each manifesting aspects of God's perfection. At the center of this splendor was Lucifer, whose radiance was unparalleled and whose role surpassed that of any other celestial being. At the heart of the celestial order was a structure of authority known as the angelic hierarchy. This hierarchy was composed of distinct orders, each with specific functions contributing to the harmony of the universe. Seraphim. The highest in the celestial hierarchy, the seraphim were beings of pure light, described as those who burn with love for the Creator. Their primary role was to stand before the throne of God, ceaselessly praising His holiness and transmitting His glory. According to Scripture, they sang, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of His glory." Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3. Cherubim. Guardians of the divine presence, the cherubim were responsible for protecting God's holiness and often represented the bridge between the divine and the earthly. They were described as beings with multiple wings and filled with eyes, symbolizing vigilance and power. Archangels, figures of leadership and communication, the archangels served as direct messengers of the Creator for specific missions, including spiritual battles and important announcements. One of the most well-known is Michael, who would play a crucial role in the story of Lucifer. Angels. The most numerous among the celestials, the angels were messengers and servants, tasked with interacting with the physical and spiritual world, carrying out the divine will with absolute obedience. Together, these orders formed a perfect symphony, where each celestial being occupied its place, working in unison to glorify and serve the Creator. Among the angels, none was as exalted as Lucifer. Described as the seal of perfection, he was endowed with wisdom beyond comprehension, and his beauty was a direct reflection of God's majesty. Lucifer was not just a being of light, but also a natural leader. He commanded with charisma and grace, inspiring the angels to follow his example. His role included overseeing celestial worship. Lucifer was closely tied to the music of the heavens. Many traditions point out that he was chiefly responsible for directing the praise of the Creator, his voice resounding like a pure melody that filled the heavens with harmony. His leadership radiated confidence and authority, for he was not only obeyed, but deeply admired. The sacred texts reflect the grandeur of this being when they say, "You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, sardius, topaz and diamond, beryl, onyx and jasper, sapphire, carbuncle and emerald, and crafted in gold were your tambourines and your pipes. On the day that you were created, they were prepared. Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13. Lucifer was undoubtedly the center of admiration in the heavens. His light not only illuminated the celestial realm, but also guided the other angels, like a beacon pointing to the glory of God. Life in the heavens before the tragedy was marked by a peace that surpasses human understanding. The angels existed in perfect harmony, each fulfilling their role with joy and contentment. The heavens were a place where divine glory was manifest in every aspect, and Lucifer, with his unparalleled brilliance, was a personification of that glory. He walked among the stones of fire, a symbolic expression representing his proximity to the throne of God and his exalted position in the celestial realm. This proximity granted him unique authority and privilege. Lucifer was not just an angel. He was the symbol of divine creation in its most perfect form. The admiration he inspired was not based solely on his appearance, but also on his actions and words. He was the leader who inspired trust and reverence, a living example of what the angels aspired to be. However, this elevated position was not an end in itself. It existed so that he could reflect God's glory with greater intensity. The angels willingly followed him, and his presence was a source of joy for all. Amidst his leadership, the heavens resounded with songs of praise, and the divine light was reflected even more brilliantly. Although the heavens were a domain of perfect order, freedom was an intrinsic component of this perfection. God, in his wisdom, granted the angels free will, a gift that allowed them to choose to serve him voluntarily. This freedom, which was meant to be a reflection of divine goodness, opened the possibility for something unexpected to emerge. In the heart of Lucifer, the most radiant of all, a spark of ambition began to burn. This small shadow, imperceptible at first, would grow over time, transforming the bearer of light into a threat to celestial harmony itself. The tragedy that was about to unfold would not merely be a change in the order of the heavens, but an event that would deeply mark the history of the universe. What began as a realm of light and perfection was about to be shaken by the one considered untouchable. The story of Lucifer's fall is a tale of transformation, from a being created as the purest expression of divine light to the greatest adversary of God. This process did not occur suddenly or abruptly. Instead, it began as a spark, an imperceptible shadow in the heart of the one created to shine more brightly than all others. This chapter, marked by the emergence of pride and the desire for autonomy, serves as a warning of how even the most perfect can be corrupted when freedom is misused. Lucifer, as the seal of perfection, occupied a unique position in the heavens. He not only reflected God's glory, but was also intimately involved with the highest functions of celestial worship. His closeness to the Creator, however, began to stir something unexpected in his heart, a questioning of his own position. Over time, Lucifer began to view his own beauty, wisdom, and power differently. He who once used these qualities to glorify God began to see them as attributes that made him worthy of something greater. This subtle change is captured in Ezekiel's words. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 17. This pride, still latent, was the first crack in celestial harmony. Lucifer began to ponder what it meant to be beneath God, questioning why he, the most radiant of all, could not wield power equal to or greater than the Creator's. This doubt, though small, planted a seed of corruption that would soon germinate. As Lucifer's pride grew, a desire for autonomy began to take shape. He, who had once been an exemplar of obedience and worship, started to entertain thoughts of independence. The idea of being equal to or greater than God began to take root in his heart, as expressed by Isaiah. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 14. This desire was not merely a reflection of ambition, but also of an emerging rebellion. Lucifer began to consider that the divine order, which he once upheld, limited his potential. He believed that his light should not merely reflect God's glory, but become an independent source of splendor. Lucifer's desire for autonomy manifested in various ways. He began to question the need to submit to a higher power, considering that his wisdom and beauty already placed him in an exalted position. These thoughts, initially private, started to influence his interactions with other angels. His leadership ability, once used to inspire worship of God, became a means to promote his own ideas. God, in his omniscience, perceived the change occurring in Lucifer's heart. Like a loving father, he did not condemn him immediately, but sought to bring him back to the path of obedience and humility. Divine warnings began to appear in various forms, as reminders that pride was incompatible with celestial nature. One of the earliest signs was the intervention of other angels. Seraphim and archangels, aware of Lucifer's growing unrest, tried to counsel him. Michael, one of the archangels closest to God, approached Lucifer with words of warning, reminding him of his position as a creature, not the creator. However, Lucifer's pride made him deaf to these admonitions. In addition to the words of his companions, celestial signs were also sent. Some texts and traditions suggest that God used extraordinary events to draw Lucifer's attention, such as a temporary dimming of his light, a reminder that his glory was dependent on the Creator. These events, however, were interpreted by Lucifer not as warnings, but as challenges to his position, further strengthening his desire to prove his superiority. God, in his mercy, allowed Lucifer time to reflect and change. He did not force repentance, as the freedom to choose was part of the perfection of creation. But each warning was ignored, each sign dismissed. Lucifer believed that his light was sufficient proof that he was destined for something greater, refusing to acknowledge that this light was a gift, not an achievement. With pride entrenched and the desire for autonomy growing, Lucifer's fall became inevitable. What had begun as a silent questioning had turned into a plan of action. He began to influence other angels, using his eloquence and charisma to convince them that his path was just. Lucifer's story up to this point serves as a clear warning. It shows that pride, when left unchecked, can distort even the purest of hearts. God, in his patience, offered countless opportunities for Lucifer to repent, but the bearer of light chose to ignore them. The first glimpse of corruption in the heavens would only be the beginning of a cosmic tragedy that would forever alter the order of the universe. At this moment, celestial harmony began to be threatened, not by external forces, but by a darkness that originated in the heart of one of its own leaders. Lucifer, the most radiant of all, was about to turn heaven into a battlefield. Lucifer's decision to challenge the Creator was an event that shook the foundations of celestial order. What began as a seed of pride germinated into a desire for autonomy and culminated in an open rejection of divine warnings. This moment would mark the transformation of the bearer of light into God's greatest adversary, initiating a rebellion that would forever alter the destiny of the universe. The signs and warnings sent by God, in his infinite patience, were ignored by Lucifer. He refused to accept that his light, wisdom, and beauty were reflections of divine glory and not attributes of his own. Every reminder sent by other angels, every celestial intervention, was met with disdain. Archangels like Michael and Gabriel, known for their loyalty and closeness to the Creator, approached Lucifer, attempting to convince him to reconsider. They reminded him of the celestial harmony and perfection that existed in obedience to God's will. However, Lucifer, engulfed in his pride, interpreted these attempts as signs of weakness, or worse, as evidence that his vision was correct. "Why must we submit?" Lucifer asked defiantly. He questioned the need to obey an order that, in his distorted view, limited the angel's potential. He believed that God, despite all his power, had created beings with capabilities and talents that could rival the Creator himself. This thought, fueled by pride, became the foundation of his rejection of the warnings. Lucifer's insistence on challenging divine order caused his presence in heaven to begin to stir unrest. The angels, once unified in worship and service, started to perceive a change in the heart of the one who had once been their greatest example. Over time, Lucifer transitioned from a silent questioner to an openly dissenting leader. He realized that his eloquence and charisma could be used to influence other angels. Instead of reflecting divine light, he began to use it as a means to attract followers to his cause. Lucifer began sowing doubt among the angels, questioning the justice and necessity of divine authority. He argued that angels, as beings of light and power, deserved more freedom, more autonomy, and even the possibility of ruling on their own. He promised them a future where they would no longer be subordinate to God, but could rule alongside him in a new kingdom to be established. These promises attracted a significant group of angels. Some shared the same restlessness that Lucifer had initially felt, while others were persuaded by his charming words. He appealed to their pride, curiosity, and even discontent with their roles. The angels who followed Lucifer formed a growing movement within heaven. These angels, now divided in thought and purpose, began to plan in secret. Lucifer used his privileged position and knowledge of celestial hierarchies to organize his rebellion. He saw himself not merely as a leader, but as a visionary leading the angels toward a better future. The formation of this faction was a moment of profound impact in heaven. The loyal angels began to sense that something was changing. The celestial unity, once unshakable, was being eroded by division. Finally, Lucifer's rebellion could no longer be hidden. His plans, promises, and intentions were revealed before the heavens. God, in his omniscience, already knew Lucifer's heart, but allowed him to proceed to the point where his rebellion manifested fully. When Lucifer's rebellion was brought to light, the impact was devastating. The angels who remained faithful to the Creator were shocked to see that the one who had once been the most admired among them had rebelled against divine order. The revelation brought not only surprise but also pain, as many angels were friends and companions of those who had chosen to follow Lucifer. Before the entire celestial host, Lucifer proclaimed his intention to challenge God's rule. He did not attempt to conceal his rebellion. On the contrary, he presented it as an act of courage and justice. He declared that he was fighting for a legitimate cause, for a kingdom where freedom would reign, and where every angel could be the master of their own destiny. The loyal angels, however, saw through his words. They recognized that Lucifer's rebellion was not driven by a genuine desire for freedom, but by pride and boundless ambition. The contrast between Lucifer and the loyal angels became evident. While the former sought to elevate himself above God, the latter remained steadfast in their devotion, understanding that true freedom lay in obedience to the Creator. With Lucifer's rebellion revealed, the heavens were divided. The angels aligned themselves according to their choices. Some remained loyal to God, while others followed Lucifer in his rebellion. This division marked the beginning of a conflict that would transcend time and space, a spiritual battle that would echo throughout creation. Lucifer, now clearly separated from the divine purpose, was determined to move forward. He had rejected the warnings, gathered followers, and revealed his rebellion. His decision to challenge the Creator not only sealed his fate, but also initiated a war that would forever change heaven and earth. The decision to challenge God was the culmination of a series of wrong choices. Lucifer, who had been created as the most radiant of creatures, now became the archetype of rebellion. His journey from light to darkness is a reminder that even the highest gifts can be corrupted when pride takes the place of humility and obedience. The rebellion was about to begin, and the heavens would never be the same. With his rebellion declared, Lucifer began gathering his followers in preparation for war. He knew that a confrontation with God and his loyal angels was inevitable, and that he needed a strategy to attempt the impossible, dethroning the Creator himself. Lucifer used all his eloquence and charisma to consolidate the support of 1/3 of the celestial hosts, as described in Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven. He promised freedom and glory to these angels, arguing that under his command, they could rule a kingdom where they would not be subordinate to anyone. The angels who joined Lucifer's cause were largely those who had been persuaded by his words about autonomy and the injustice of submitting to God's absolute power. They believed that Lucifer could establish a new order, one that would rival the glory of heaven. Lucifer, who had been the seal of perfection and possessed unparalleled wisdom, used his knowledge of the celestial hierarchy to prepare his forces. He knew he could not surpass God in power, but believed that his strategy and followers could secure victory. He organized them into divisions, each with subordinate leaders, forming what he considered an unbeatable army. On the other hand, God, in his infinite wisdom, allowed Lucifer to proceed with his preparations, not because there was any doubt about the ultimate outcome, but because free will was one of the greatest gifts given to the angels, and Lucifer was exercising this gift, albeit destructively. As Lucifer gathered his forces, the heavens prepared to defend divine order. Michael, the archangel, was chosen to lead the loyal armies. Known for his strength, courage, and unwavering loyalty, his name, meaning "who is like God," was a proclamation against Lucifer's pride, reminding all that no one could equal the Creator. Michael assembled the faithful angels and organized them into a formation that symbolized their loyalty and trust in God's sovereignty. He encouraged them with words that echoed through heaven. "Let us fight for the glory of God and the preservation of His creation. Do not fear, for justice is on our side." The battle began on an epic scale, with Lucifer's forces confronting the armies led by Michael. It was a spectacle of light and shadow, a celestial confrontation that transcends human understanding. Lucifer's hosts advanced first, their energies colliding with Michael's forces in a thunderous clash that reverberated throughout the heavens. The dazzling brilliance of the loyal angels mixed with the growing darkness emanating from the rebels. Celestial weapons, often described as swords of light, sliced through the air with intensity, symbolizing the struggle between truth and falsehood, humility and pride. Lucifer led his angels with an imposing presence. He had exchanged the pure light that once reflected God's glory for a distorted radiance filled with arrogance and dark power. His voice echoed like thunder, urging his followers to fight with fury. On the other side, Michael was the embodiment of courage and loyalty. He stood on the front lines, wielding his sword and declaring, "Who is like God?" His presence inspired the loyal angels, who fought with fervor to preserve divine order. The most defining moment of the battle was the direct confrontation between Lucifer and Michael. The two, once companions in worship of the Creator, now faced each other as mortal enemies. Lucifer, confident in his strength, attacked with a power that shook the foundations of the heavens. His ambition made him formidable, and for a moment it seemed as though his forces might prevail. However, Michael, upheld by divine justice, withstood each blow with unwavering resolve. "You will never prevail, Lucifer," said Michael, as their swords of light clashed. "Your strength is but a shadow compared to the power of the Creator. Turn back while there is still time." Lucifer, consumed by pride, refused to retreat. "The throne will be mine, Michael," he replied. "I will no longer bow. I will rule with freedom while you remain servants." Despite all of Lucifer's determination and the efforts of his followers, the battle ended in the inevitable, the victory of the loyal forces. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the rebel forces could not overcome the power of the loyal angels. One by one, Lucifer's followers were defeated, their ranks unraveling under the steadfast resistance of Michael and his armies. In the final moments, Michael confronted Lucifer with all the strength granted by God. He struck him down with a devastating blow, proclaiming, "The Lord reigns forever, and his glory shall never be taken." Lucifer, now defeated, fell before divine justice. With the defeat consummated, Lucifer and his rebellious angels were cast out of heaven. Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 describes this moment. "And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world, he was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. This expulsion marked the end of Lucifer's presence in heaven and the beginning of his role as God's adversary. He who had been the bearer of light was now known as Satan, the accuser and enemy of humanity. After the battle, the heavens were restored to their original harmony. The loyal angels celebrated God's victory and the preservation of divine order. Michael was honored for his leadership and courage, but all knew that the true glory belonged to the Creator, whose justice and sovereignty had prevailed. The celestial battle was more than a physical confrontation. It was a clash between pride and humility, ambition and obedience, falsehood and truth. The defeat of Lucifer and his expulsion from heaven symbolize the triumph of divine justice and serve as an eternal reminder that no one can compare to the Creator. This war marked the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the universe, where Lucifer, now Satan, would continue his rebellion on earth, seeking to turn God's creation away from him. Yet heaven remained a testament to divine sovereignty and the faithfulness of those who chose to serve God in love and truth. Lucifer's decision to challenge the Creator culminated in one of the greatest battles in the history of the universe, a conflict that shook the heavens and divided creation. Lucifer's pride and ambition led him to directly challenge divine sovereignty, dragging with him a multitude of discontented angels. The final confrontation, led by Michael, was a spectacle of power, loyalty, and justice that would determine the fate of Lucifer and his followers for all eternity. Lucifer used all his eloquence and charisma to consolidate the support of 1/3 of the celestial hosts, as described in Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven. He promised freedom and glory to these angels, arguing that under his command they could rule a kingdom where they would not be subordinate to anyone. The angels who adhered to Lucifer's cause were largely those persuaded by his words about autonomy and the injustice of submitting to God's absolute power. They believed that Lucifer could establish a new order, one that would rival the glory of heaven. Lucifer, who had been the seal of perfection and possessed incomparable wisdom, used his knowledge of the celestial hierarchy to prepare his forces. He knew he could not surpass God in power, but he believed his strategy and followers could secure victory. He organized them into divisions, each with subordinate leaders, forming what he considered an unbeatable army. On the other side, God, in his infinite wisdom, allowed Lucifer to proceed with his preparations. Not because there was any uncertainty about the ultimate outcome, but because free will was one of the greatest gifts given to the angels, and Lucifer was exercising this gift, though destructively. As Lucifer gathered his forces, heaven prepared to defend divine order. Michael, the archangel, was chosen to lead the loyal armies. Known for his strength, courage, and unwavering loyalty, his name, meaning "who is like God," was a proclamation against Lucifer's pride, reminding all that no one could equal the Creator. Michael assembled the faithful angels and organized them into a formation that symbolized their loyalty and trust in God's sovereignty. He encouraged them with words that echoed through heaven. "Let us fight for the glory of God and the preservation of His creation. Do not fear, for justice is on our side." The battle began on an epic scale, with Lucifer's forces confronting the armies led by Michael. It was a spectacle of light and shadow, a celestial confrontation that transcends human understanding. On the other hand, God, in His infinite wisdom, allowed Lucifer to proceed with his preparations. Not because there was any doubt about the final outcome, but because free will was one of the greatest gifts granted to the angels, and Lucifer was exercising this gift, albeit destructively. As Lucifer gathered his forces, heaven prepared to defend divine order. Michael, the archangel, was chosen to lead the loyal armies. Known for his strength, courage, and unwavering loyalty, his name, meaning "who is like God," was a proclamation against Lucifer's pride, reminding all that no one could compare to the Creator. Michael assembled the faithful angels and organized them into a formation symbolizing their loyalty and trust in God's sovereignty. He encouraged them with words that echoed through the heavens. "Let us fight for the glory of God and the preservation of His creation. Fear not, for justice is on our side." The battle began in an epic fashion, with Lucifer's forces confronting the armies led by Michael. It was a spectacle of lights and shadows, a celestial confrontation that transcends human understanding. Lucifer's hosts advanced first, their energies colliding with Michael's forces in a thunderous clash that reverberated throughout the heavens. The dazzling brilliance of the loyal angels intertwined with the growing darkness emanating from the rebels. Celestial weapons, often described as swords of light, cut through the air with intensity, symbolizing the struggle between truth and falsehood, humility and pride. Lucifer led his angels with an imposing presence. He had exchanged the pure light that once reflected God's glory for a distorted radiance filled with arrogance and dark power. His voice echoed like thunder, urging his followers to fight with fury. On the other side, Michael embodied courage and loyalty. He stood at the front lines, wielding his sword and declaring, "Who is like God?" His presence inspired the loyal angels, who fought with fervor to preserve divine order. The most significant moment of the battle was the direct confrontation between Lucifer and Michael. The two, once companions in worshipping the Creator, now faced each other as mortal enemies. Lucifer, confident in his strength, attacked with a power that shook the foundations of heaven. His ambition made him formidable, and for a moment it seemed as though his forces might prevail. However, Michael, upheld by divine justice, resisted every blow with unwavering resolve. "You will never prevail, Lucifer," said Michael as their swords of light clashed. "Your strength is but a shadow compared to the power of the Creator. Turn back while there is still time." Lucifer, consumed by pride, refused to retreat. "The throne will be mine, Michael," he replied. "I will no longer bow. I will rule with freedom while you remain servants." Despite all of Lucifer's determination and the efforts of his followers, the battle ended in the inevitable, the victory of the loyal forces. As the battle intensified, it became evident that the rebel forces could not surpass the power of the loyal angels. One by one, Lucifer's followers were defeated, their ranks falling into disarray before Michael's unshakable resistance and his armies. In the final moments, Michael faced Lucifer with all the strength granted by God. He struck him down with a devastating blow, proclaiming, "The Lord reigns forever, and his glory shall never be taken." Lucifer, now defeated, fell before divine justice. With the defeat consummated, Lucifer and his rebellious angels were cast out of heaven. Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 describes this moment. "And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." This expulsion marked the end of Lucifer's presence in heaven and the beginning of his role as God's adversary. He, who had been the bearer of light, was now known as Satan, the accuser and enemy of humanity. After the battle, heaven was restored to its original harmony. The loyal angels celebrated God's victory and the preservation of divine order. Michael was honored for his leadership and courage, but all knew that the true glory belonged to the Creator, whose justice and sovereignty had prevailed. The celestial battle was more than a physical confrontation. It was a clash between pride and humility, ambition and obedience, falsehood and truth. Lucifer's defeat and expulsion from heaven symbolize the triumph of divine justice and serve as an eternal reminder that no one can compare to the Creator. This war marked the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the universe, where Lucifer, now Satan, would continue his rebellion on earth, seeking to lead God's creation astray. Yet heaven remained a testament to divine sovereignty and the faithfulness of those who chose to serve God in love and truth. Lucifer's fall was an event of cosmic proportions, a moment of pain and rupture that shook heaven and echoed throughout creation. The most exalted angel, who had been the bearer of light, now found himself cast out of divine presence, stripped of all his glory, and condemned to eternal infamy. This is the narrative of Lucifer's expulsion, his transformation into Satan, and the beginning of his dark reign in a new realm. The moment of Lucifer's expulsion was laden with indescribable gravity. After his defeat in the celestial battle, he and his followers were brought before the divine tribunal, where the Creator pronounced their sentence. God, in his perfect justice, not only removed Lucifer's place of honor in heaven, but also cast him completely out of the celestial realm. The words of God's condemnation resounded through the heavens, filling every corner with an authority that could not be contested. You, who were the seal of perfection, have been found corrupt. You sought the glory that belongs to me alone. Therefore you shall be cast out of my kingdom to the depths, where your light shall never be seen again. As the decree was proclaimed, the heavens witnessed something unprecedented. Lucifer's glory was consumed by darkness. His radiance, which had once illuminated the heavens, was now replaced by a dense shadow that emanated pain, hatred, and shame. Lucifer did not accept his defeat in silence. In his fall, he roared with rage, his cries echoing like thunder. "This is not over! I will return and take what is rightfully mine," he bellowed with a voice filled with hatred and bitterness. His wrath was directed not only at God, but also at the angels who had remained loyal. The moment of Lucifer's expulsion was a spectacle of power, as described in Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. "And the great dragon was cast out, that ancient serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." The fall was violent, like lightning cutting through the heavens, and its impact was felt across the universe. The pain of separation was immeasurable. For Lucifer, who had been so close to God's throne, being banished from heaven was an irreparable loss. Every instant of the fall seemed like an eternal plunge into the void, an endless descent away from divine light. Upon reaching the depths, Lucifer emerged as something entirely different from what he once was. The bearer of light was now unrecognizable. He had become Satan, the adversary, consumed by hatred and a desire for revenge. Lucifer's transformation was not only physical, but also spiritual. His heart, once filled with God's glory, was now saturated with darkness. Every thought, every emotion was shaped by resentment and rejection of divine sovereignty. His new name, Satan, meant accuser or adversary. He embraced this title fervently, vowing to oppose God and everything he had created. His hatred was not limited to the Creator. He also despised the loyal angels, and especially humanity, which he knew was the object of divine love. Satan's body reflected his new nature. His transcendent beauty was replaced with a terrifying appearance, marked by scars from his fall and a dark aura emanating destruction. He had exchanged his celestial light for a consuming darkness that devoured everything around him. Though isolated, Satan was not defeated. He turned his pain into fuel for an insatiable desire for vengeance. In his heart, he crafted a singular purpose: to sabotage God's plans and corrupt everything that was pure. He could no longer ascend to heaven, but he swore to turn creation into a reflection of his own desolation. "If I cannot have the throne," he declared, "I will make the earth my kingdom and drag humanity with me into darkness." After his expulsion, Satan and his followers were condemned to a new dwelling place, a shadowy and desolate realm that reflected the nature of their rebellion. This new existence was entirely opposite to the splendor of heaven. It was a place of perpetual darkness, where no light could penetrate and the glory of God was absent. This place, often referred to as hell, was not only a site of punishment, but also a symbol of complete separation from God. In contrast to heaven, where peace and harmony reigned, Satan's realm was chaotic and oppressive. There, Satan began to plot his revenge. He gathered his followers, who now shared in his dark form. They who were once angels of light had become demons, beings tormented by their fall and dedicated to destruction. Satan established his authority in this shadowy realm, declaring himself king over the darkness. He organized his domain in a hierarchical manner, similar to the celestial structure he had rejected. Each demon had a role, all aimed at a singular goal, the corruption of divine creation. However, Satan knew he could not act directly against God. He turned his attention to humanity, which was soon to be created, seeing in them an opportunity to wound the Creator's heart. He carefully planned how to use his cunning and influence to deceive and destroy humankind, drawing them into his rebellion. "If I cannot destroy heaven," he thought, "I will make the earth my battlefield. They will be my weapon against him." This new dwelling became Satan's base of operations, the place from which he would launch his war against God and his creations. He did not see his fall as a final defeat, but as the beginning of a new phase in his rebellion. The fall of Lucifer marks the beginning of his transformation into Satan, a being consumed by hatred and vengeance. He was cast out of heaven, stripped of all glory, and condemned to a shadowy realm where he began to plot his influence over the world. His story is a powerful reminder of the consequences of pride and rebellion, and how even the most exalted can fall when they stray from divine light. But it is also a testament to God's justice, which preserves the harmony of his creation even in the face of betrayal. Lucifer's fall was not only an act of destruction, but also a turning point in the ongoing struggle between light and darkness, a battle that continues to shape the destiny of the universe. From the moment of his fall, Lucifer, now known as Satan, saw in humanity a unique opportunity to continue his rebellion against God. If he could not strike directly at the Creator, he would do so by corrupting those made in God's image and likeness. His influence on humanity began in Eden and expanded over the centuries, bringing destruction and darkness while prompting the continued intervention of loyal angels who serve as guardians of the light. Satan's first assault on humanity took place in the Garden of Eden, a place that embodied the purity and perfection of God's plan. Adam and Eve lived in harmony with God, enjoying an existence free of pain, suffering, or sin. For Satan, corrupting this state of perfection would be a symbolic and practical victory against the Creator. Disguised as a serpent, Satan approached Eve with cunning words, planting doubts about God's goodness and authority. He questioned the divine command, saying, "Did God actually say, 'You shall not eat of any tree in the garden'?" Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. When Eve explained that only the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was forbidden, Satan used his cunning to distort the truth, promising that eating the fruit would bring wisdom and freedom. "You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Genesis chapter 3, verses 4 and 5. This promise echoed Satan's own rebellion. Just as he had desired to be like God, he now incited humans to do the same. Eve, drawn by the desire to be more than she had been created to be, took the fruit and shared it with Adam, introducing sin into the world. This initial victory of Satan not only separated humanity from God, but also opened the door to centuries of malign influence. The temptation in Eden was the first step in his ongoing strategy to sow doubt, pride, and disobedience in the human heart. Throughout history, Satan has continued to exert his influence over humanity, fostering pride, greed, and destruction. He does not always appear as a direct figure, but often as a force manipulating events and hearts to draw people away from God. Pride, which led to Satan's own fall, became one of his most effective tools against humanity. From ancient kings who saw themselves as gods, to ordinary individuals who choose their own desires above divine will, Satan has used pride to turn people away from God. The story of the Tower of Babel is a classic example of this influence. Mankind, driven by the desire to reach heaven by their own merits, decided to build a tower that would make them equal to God. This attempt at self-exaltation is a direct manifestation of the rebellious spirit introduced by Satan. Greed, another fruit of Satan's influence, has been responsible for countless wars, oppressions, and injustices. He whispers to the human heart, saying there is never enough, urging people to take more, conquer more, even at the expense of others. From the corruptions of ancient empires to the excesses of modern society, Satan has wielded greed as a powerful weapon to destroy relationships, societies, and even God's creation. Satan also delights in pure destruction. He instigates conflicts and wars, spreads lies and divisions, and encourages acts of violence that harm both body and spirit. Human history is filled with examples of his influence, from battlefields to the most personal acts of betrayal. He is described in Scripture as the thief who comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. John chapter 10, verse 10. His mission is not only to corrupt, but also to bring suffering and lead humanity away from the hope and light of God. Though Satan's influence is undeniable, God has never left humanity unprotected. From the beginning, loyal angels have served as guardians of light, battling the forces of darkness and shielding humans from the attacks of the evil one. The angels, under the leadership of Michael and other archangels, play an active role in protecting humanity. They intervene at crucial moments, both visibly and invisibly, thwarting Satan's plans and protecting those who seek God. A striking example of this intervention is found in the book of Daniel, where Michael is sent to fight against the forces of darkness that sought to prevent a divine message from reaching the prophet. This episode demonstrates that the spiritual battle between loyal angels and Satan's followers is constant and unseen by human eyes. In addition to direct protection, angels also work to inspire and encourage humanity. They guide people toward truth, strengthen their faith, and serve as messengers of God's will. For instance, at the birth of Jesus, the angels proclaimed the good news to the shepherds, announcing the beginning of a new era of hope and redemption. This message was not only an announcement, but also a reminder that God was actively intervening in history to defeat the darkness. The Guardians of Light are constantly at war with Satan's forces. Though this struggle often goes unnoticed, its impact is felt in all aspects of life. From protecting individuals from spiritual dangers to preserving creation itself, loyal angels remain vigilant, fulfilling their role as defenders of God's will. Satan's influence on humanity is a constant reality, marked by temptation, corruption, and destruction. Yet the presence of loyal angels serves as a reminder that God does not abandon his creation. Even in the face of darkness, the Guardians of Light stand firm, protecting and guiding humanity toward redemption. This struggle between light and darkness, initiated with Lucifer's fall, continues to shape human history. But in the end, God's promise is clear. Light will triumph over darkness, and creation will be restored to the glory for which it was originally intended. Since his fall, Lucifer, now known as Satan, has positioned himself as God's principal adversary, continually seeking to corrupt, destroy, and divert divine creation from its purpose. His role in the apocalypse, as described in Scripture, will culminate in a final confrontation, an epic battle between good and evil that will seal his eternal fate. This narrative is central to understanding God's plan for redemption and the restoration of absolute peace. Scripture is replete with prophecies describing Satan's role in the apocalypse. He is portrayed as the driving force behind chaos, rebellion, and opposition to God in the last days. In the book of Revelation, Satan is described as the great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. This role as deceiver will be central to his actions in the end times, where he will seek to rally nations against God and his chosen ones. Satan will be responsible for inciting humanity's final rebellion against the Creator. Revelation chapter 20, verse 8 describes his attempt to deceive the nations and gather them for battle. And he will go out to deceive the nations at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, and to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea. Additionally, He will be the instigator behind the rise of the Antichrist and the false prophet, figures who play crucial roles in the apocalyptic narrative. The Antichrist will be his instrument to deceive humanity, offering false promises of peace and power, while the false prophet will consolidate his spiritual influence. These prophecies reveal that Satan will not only act directly, but also through systems, leaders, and global events, all aimed at challenging God's sovereignty and deceiving humanity. The climax of Revelation will be the final battle between the forces of good and evil, where Satan will face his ultimate defeat. Known as the Battle of Armageddon, this epic confrontation symbolizes the struggle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood that has persisted since Lucifer's fall. Revelation chapter 19 verse 19 describes the moment when Satan's forces will gather to face the heavenly army led by Jesus Christ. Then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered to make war against the rider on the horse and his army. This battle will not be like human wars, it will transcend earthly understanding, involving celestial and spiritual forces in a conflict of cosmic proportions. Satan, who has always relied on his pride and ability to deceive, will be confronted by the absolute truth of God. He will see that his entire rebellion was futile before the Creator's power. Michael, the archangel who previously led Satan's expulsion from heaven, will again play a crucial role. He will stand alongside the heavenly army, fighting for divine justice. Jesus Christ, depicted as the rider on the white horse, will be the supreme commander of this battle. With a single command from his mouth, he will defeat Satan's forces, as described in Revelation chapter 19, verse 15. Out of his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. Satan's defeat will be inevitable and complete. The power of light will prevail over darkness, and God's eternal purpose will be fulfilled. After the final battle, Satan will be captured and face his eternal destiny. Revelation chapter 20, verse 10 powerfully describes this moment. And the devil, who deceived them, was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. This lake of fire represents the definitive separation from God, a place of eternal torment reserved for Satan, his rebellious angels, and all those who chose to follow his ways. There will be no return, no possibility of redemption for him or his followers. Satan's condemnation marks the end of his influence over creation. His ultimate defeat will be a moment of triumph for good, where God's kingdom will be established in its fullness. Creation will be restored to its original glory, free from sin, pain, and death. Revelation chapter 21 verse 4 describes the new order that will be established. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. With Satan removed forever, divine peace will reign absolutely. The plan of redemption, initiated since the fall in Eden, will be fully realized, and humanity will be reconciled with God. The role of Lucifer in Revelation is that of a defeated adversary, whose rebellion will culminate in his eternal destruction. His actions throughout time serve as a warning against pride and disobedience, but also highlight God's sovereignty and the certainty of his victory. The story of Revelation is not only about the end of Satan's rebellion, but also about the restoration of all creation to its original perfection. It is a reminder that, although darkness may prevail for a time, light will triumph in the end, and God's kingdom will be eternal. The story of Lucifer is one of the most profound and significant narratives in spirituality and humanity. His journey from celestial glory to eternal darkness is a powerful reminder of the consequences of pride and unchecked ambition. It is also a story of contrast between light and darkness, obedience and rebellion, hope and condemnation. Lucifer's fall serves as a warning against the dangers of placing oneself above God's purpose. He, who was created as the most beautiful and exalted of angels, allowed pride to grow in his heart, leading him to question God's sovereignty. That pride, the root of his rebellion, not only led him away from the light, but also brought pain and destruction wherever he went. Lucifer teaches us that, no matter how exalted we may be, unchecked ambition can lead us to fall. His story reminds us that true greatness lies in humility and service, not in the relentless pursuit of power and glory. As human beings, we often face the same temptations he faced: the temptation to prioritize our own interests above all, to rebel against authority, and to let pride cloud our judgment. Reflecting on Lucifer's fall invites us to examine our own hearts and avoid paths that lead us away from the light. Despite the darkness Lucifer brought into the universe, his story is also a testament to the triumph of light in God's plan. God's victory over Satan in the celestial battle and revelation is proof that good always triumphs, even in the face of the greatest challenges. The message of hope is woven throughout the biblical narrative. Although sin and darkness entered the world, God's plan of redemption offers a way out for all who seek his light. In Jesus Christ, the world found the ultimate answer to Satan's influence, and the promise of a new creation, where evil will be eradicated forever, remains a beacon for all believers. Light not only prevails, but transforms. God, in his infinite mercy, calls each person to step out of darkness and into his marvelous light. No matter how deep the darkness, divine grace is always available to bring redemption and peace. The story of Lucifer, with his fall, rebellion, and ultimate defeat, invites us to reflect on the duality we face daily, between light and darkness, good and evil, humility and pride. We are reminded that life is a constant journey of choices, and each decision brings us closer to or further away from God. As we meditate on this story, we should ask ourselves, are we allowing pride to dominate our hearts? Are we seeking divine light, or are we being seduced by the empty promises of darkness? Humility, obedience, and faith are virtues that keep us aligned with God's purpose. Just as the loyal angel stood firm with God, we are called to do the same, even in the face of temptations and challenges. The story of Lucifer is not just a warning, but also an invitation to seek the light, trust in God's plan, and live with humility and gratitude. In the end, the choice is ours, and God's promise is clear. Those who choose the light will find peace, joy, and an eternity with the Creator. Lucifer's trajectory, though marked by tragedy, is an essential part of God's greater plan. It teaches us about the consequences of pride, the victory of good over evil, and the hope that is never lost. May this reflection inspire each of us to remain steadfast in the light and remember that despite the darkness, divine light will always prevail.